They say only the life-changing days stay in your memory. My days were always the same. A wrinkled school uniform, half-eaten kimbap, and a bag full of notebooks I never opened. My name is Minjay. I'm a second-year high school student. I was tired of school, tired of exams, just tired of everything. But I did like the ramen shop across from the cram school. That was the only exception. To be honest, I really hated cram school. The smell of markers, the sharp sound of pencils scratching, the flickering fluorescent lights that turned everyone into ghosts. Every time I walked into class, I thought, when will this class be over? It was boring, but that day, everything changed, because that was the day she walked in, wearing a different school's uniform, with long hair quietly swaying. She didn't say a word. She sat in the third seat from the front, head down, focused, so calm. I remember thinking, that uniform, what school is that from? I didn't even know her name, but I started to notice things. When she arrived, where she sat, how she adjusted her sleeves when it was cold. I ended up knowing all that. I think that's when it began. It wasn't love. Not yet. But I suddenly had a reason to want to come back tomorrow. After a few days at the cram school, I figured out that her school was 2 subway stops from mine. Sometimes I saw her at the station. She never noticed me, but I remembered everything. The way she quietly hummed while waiting. Her beige tote bag with a few pins on it. One of them was a cat wearing glasses. It looked like it read a lot of books. I still didn't know her name, but I memorized the rhythm of that subway ride like a song. First stop, nerves. Second stop, anticipation. Sometimes I'd walk a bit behind her. It might sound strange, but it just felt nice to walk in the same direction. The cram school no longer felt like a prison. Now, it felt more like a bridge. I started going to class early. I sat up straighter, answered questions. One day she stayed after class, so I stayed too. And then the next day, it rained. The kind of rain that soaks your socks. Cold, late autumn rain. The perfect weather to catch a cold. She came in a little wet and late. Her hair stuck to her cheeks. And for the first time, she sat next to me. The classroom was half empty that day. It was midterm season, and many kids were either pretending to be sick or actually were. She looked at me and said, "Your shoes are wet too." I froze, like I forgot how to speak. So I smiled, and then she smiled too. It was brief, like scenery swaying in a spring breeze. That smile washed all my fatigue away. After that, she sat next to me without saying much. Quiet, but that quietness felt like music. I didn't even notice time passing. That day, I was soaked and hungry, but smiling. A few days later, the teacher called me. "Minjay, did something happen? Your grades really improved." I shrugged. What could I say? I just tried a little harder. No one knew. My own secret motivation. Honestly, I didn't fully understand it myself. Was it because of her? Or did I just want to become a better person because of her? She started noticing me too. Small comments. "Your notes are really neat. You always come early." I wanted to say, I didn't used to. "It's because of you." But I didn't. I just smiled. Like a coward, but a happy coward. And then that day came. A particularly cold day at cram school. The last day of the semester. The end of everything. She looked at me and said, "I might not come next semester." I asked why. She said, "My parents want me to study near home." I didn't know what to say. I walked her to the subway station. The sky was gray. Her scarf was red. In that moment, I thought I had to say something. Anything. But I couldn't. She got on the train. The doors closed. And Never saw her again. But I still went to cram school. Every day. Same time. Same seat. Sometimes the thing you start because of someone else becomes something you continue for yourself. It was about a week into winter break. No cram school. No exams. A day where I could sleep in as much as I wanted. I was heading toward the town's busy street with a few friends. No special plans. Just wasting time. Eating burgers, playing claw machines, and maybe going to karaoke. That's what high school breaks are like. No money or energy to go far. Hey Minjae, did you see that girl earlier? Jinho nudged my side with his elbow. Who? Over there, in front of Mega Coffee. I turned my head without much thought. And then, I felt like I couldn't breathe. It was her. Long hair, same coat. She was with some friends. Three unfamiliar faces. They were laughing about something trivial, but for me, in that moment, all the noise of the world faded. It was too sudden, too unreal. Even after she stopped coming to cram school, I kept going, hoping just a little that I might see her again. But she never came. Time passed. And I thought it had all ended. But now, right there, so close, my heart pounded. Maybe we can meet again. But at the same time, I felt like nothing had changed. I was still the guy who couldn't speak, and she was still walking a different path from mine. Hey, 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 go say hi or something. I don't know who she is, but this is the first time I've seen you blank out like that. Jinho playfully pushed my back. I lost balance and stepped forward. At that moment, she looked up, and our eyes met. Time stopped. 1 second. 2 seconds. No, it felt way longer. The corner of her mouth lifted slightly. That was definitely a look of recognition. Do you know her? One of my friends asked. I couldn't answer. I was speechless, caught in the gaze I hadn't seen in so long. She took a few steps toward me, leaving her friends behind. We stood at an awkward distance, unsure. Then she smiled and spoke first. Long time no see. You're not going to that cram school anymore? That voice. I remembered it exactly. The tone from that rainy day she sat beside me. Yeah, I still go. I smiled awkwardly. Really, awkwardly. Really? You're working hard. She smiled again, softly, like before. Then, hearing her friends call her, she waved and said, We're going to a movie. I'll go first. She glanced at me once more before turning away. And then, she disappeared into the crowd again. That night, I didn't go to karaoke. I just went home early. With earphones in, playing some random jazz track that had nothing to do with anything. I found myself repeating her last words. You're not going to that cram school anymore? It was a question, but somehow, it felt like a bridge made of memory. It meant she remembered me. She hadn't disappeared. She was just walking in a different direction. And now, we were in the same neighborhood again. Winter break is a strange time. No school, no exams. Everything feels like it's on pause, but inside, your heart gets busier. After that day, I kept finding myself walking by that place, the busy street in front of Mega Coffee. Sometimes I went with friends, pretending it was no big deal. Other times, I just stopped by for no reason, because I thought maybe she'd be there again. We had talked now, smiled, and confirmed that we remembered each other. But those coincidences don't come as easily as you hope. Hey Minjae, you're acting weird these days, Jinho said. What? I don't know what it is, but you keep walking the same streets, going to the same shops. Be honest, you're still thinking about that girl, aren't you? I couldn't deny it. She just keeps coming to mind. Jinho stared at me for a moment and smirked. Then do something about it. Don't drag it out. If you care, move. I let out a sigh and a dry laugh. I wish I was as simple as you. It's not simple. It's just clear. That night lying in bed, I thought of her again. The long hair, calm voice, and her last sentence that echoed in my head. You're not going to that cram school anymore? It wasn't just a question. She remembered me, and maybe she was trying to say our story wasn't over. A few days later, I was at the library, the old public one next to the community center. I was flipping through college prep materials for universities in Seoul. And then it happened. Totally by chance, with zero warning, I saw her again. My heart reacted faster than my brain, faster than my eyes, faster than my voice. She was looking at the bookshelf opposite me. I pretended not to notice, waiting for her to notice me first. It felt like the cooler move. But honestly, I was scared. Then she looked up and saw me. We meet again? She said first. I blinked and nodded. Yeah. Do you come here often? Sometimes. I was supposed to come with a friend today, but they canceled. She didn't smile, but her voice was calm. As we left the library, we walked side by side, in the same direction. You know, that day, she began, when I said I wasn't coming to cram school anymore. It wasn't just because of my parents, she said carefully. Actually, I was going to the hospital, the psychiatric kind. I was at a loss for words. I wasn't going crazy or anything. It just felt like my emotions were frozen. I wasn't scared or sad. I just felt nothing. For a long time. She clasped her hands together as she spoke. When I was alone at night, I'd think things like, I wish everything would just stop. That thought came too often. Way too often. I held my breath. Any words would have felt careless. Even going to cram school was hard. Studying was an excuse. Really, I just didn't want anyone to talk to me. She closed her eyes. But then, one day you were there, sitting next to me. I looked at her, surprised. She smiled quietly. You didn't say anything, just sat there. And that was strange for me. For the first time, someone wasn't asking anything from me. Just being there. That itself was comforting. I lowered my head. Her words settled quietly in my chest. After that, you kept sitting next to me, still without saying anything. I was thankful, but also scared. Scared of what? I asked gently. Scared I might start relying on you. And then later, if you disappeared, it would hurt more. She took a deep breath. So I stopped. Without saying anything, I quit cram school. I was sorry, but I thought that was the best I could do. I replied softly. I kept waiting, though. I know, that's why I felt even more sorry. A breeze passed by. Her hair brushed my shoulder. I said quietly, when you disappeared, I was scared too. She looked at me, and I added, I kept wondering if you were really sick, or if you just didn't want to see me anymore. All kinds of thoughts. That's why I kept going to that cram school, hoping you might come back. Just once, even. She blinked slowly, then spoke. Isn't it weird that you went that far? Yeah, kinda weird, I said with a smile. But I just wanted to. That day, we finally shared the stories buried deep in our hearts. Words we had hidden, fears, caution. She hadn't pushed me away because she disliked me, but because she was struggling to handle herself. And I wanted to understand that. As the sun set and lights began to flicker on in the park, we sat quietly on a bench, watching. A night where we didn't need to say everything. A night where our warmth was enough. And that night, For the first time, I reached out my hand, carefully but naturally. She looked at it for a moment and gently took it, and hand in hand, with a glance that said, "Let's just be here, right now." We walked. After that day, my life began to have meaning and time again. After lunch, I'd head to the library. Sometimes I ran into her. Other times, I'd purposely adjust my schedule just to increase the chances. The reason was simple. I liked seeing her, and the time I spent walking beside her shook me more deeply than any class I'd ever taken. "It's not raining today," she said one day. "Why?" I asked. She tilted her head slightly and replied, "Remember that day when it rained? The day you sat next to me. You remember?" "Of course. You kept sitting next to me after that, too." She remembered it all, the temperature that day, the air, the silence, and I was slowly beginning to feel certain this feeling might not be mine alone. But strangely, the closer you get to someone, the more anxious the heart becomes. Whenever the distance between us grew too small, I became more careful with my words. Even my laughter began to carry weight, as if I needed to measure it. "You don't talk much these days," Jinho said. "Just have a lot on my mind." Jinho nodded knowingly. "Did something happen with her?" "No, not yet." That word, yet, kept echoing inside me. She was still a quiet person. Sometimes she reached out first, but more often, she needed time to be alone. One day I got a message from her. "I'm sorry. I just want to be by myself today." After reading that sentence, I put my phone down and turned on some dark music in my room. I knew, I knew she wasn't pushing me away. But still, I never knew liking someone could make you feel this uneasy. The next day, she stood in front of the library as if nothing had happened. "Sorry about yesterday. It's okay. Sometimes my mind just gets too loud." Those words stuck with me. I carefully asked, "Are you going through something?" She didn't answer. Instead, she closed her eyes and took a short breath. "You know those days where everything is fine, but your heart just isn't?" I nodded. "Yeah, I know." "You do?" "Yeah. I've had a lot of days like that, too." She smiled slightly, and in that smile, there was a hint of sadness. That day, we walked for a long time without saying much. There was no rain, no wind, but inside I felt oddly cold, and beside her I felt warm. That day, I realized for the first time there were stories in her heart she hadn't told anyone yet. And I also realized I wouldn't be able to hear those stories until I got closer than I was now. So I decided to walk slowly, beside her, quietly. I held back my words, matched her pace. When she stopped, I stopped. When she looked up, I looked at the sky too, so that the stories she didn't say could one day begin to flow. I started putting my heart in order. Like a whisper to myself, I said, "I'll wait. Even if you don't say anything, it's okay." I don't know if those words reached her, but in that moment she looked at me, and without saying a word, she smiled. That smile felt more right, more true than anything I'd learned from math or literature. As usual, I was waiting in front of the library, just when I began to wonder if maybe she wouldn't come today. I was about to stand up. That day, she arrived late, and then I saw her. Slow steps, a brief pause to catch her breath. In her hands, instead of books, she was holding only a black cashmere scarf. "I'm sorry for making you wait," she said, steadying her breathing. "It's okay, but did something happen?" I asked. She didn't answer for a long time. Without saying a word, we walked behind the library to a small park. Winter was nearing its end, but the air still carried a lingering chill. She sat down on a bench, looked up at the sky for a moment, then lowered her head. And then, in a voice I hadn't heard before, she began to speak. You remember that day when I said I was quitting cram school? I nodded. Yeah, that wasn't only because of my parents, she said carefully. Actually, I was going to the hospital for mental health. For a moment, I couldn't speak. It's not that something was seriously wrong with me. It just felt like my emotions had stopped. I wasn't scared or sad, just numb, like I couldn't feel anything at all. She spoke with her hands folded together. When you're alone at night, you get thoughts like that, right? Thinking it'd be better if everything just stopped. That thought came to me often. Too often. I held my breath. Any words right now felt dangerous. That's why going to cram school was hard too. Studying was just an excuse. Honestly, I just didn't want anyone to talk to me. She closed her eyes. But then, one day, in that classroom, you were sitting next to me. When I looked at her in surprise, she smiled quietly. You didn't say anything. You just sat there. And that was strange to me. For the first time, someone wasn't asking anything of me. Just being there was comforting. I lowered my head, saying nothing. Her words settled softly into my chest. After that, you kept sitting next to me. Still, quietly, I was grateful. But I was also scared. What were you scared of? I asked carefully. That I might start leaning on you, and if someday you disappeared too, it would hurt even more. She took a long breath. So I stopped, without saying anything. I quit cram school. I was sorry, but I thought that was the best I could do. I answered softly. I kept waiting, though. I know. That's why I felt even more sorry. A light breeze passed by. Her hair brushed against my shoulder. I spoke quietly. When you disappeared back then, I was scared too. She looked at me, and I continued. I wondered if you were really sick, or if you just didn't want to see me. I kept thinking about all kinds of things. That's why I kept going to that cram school, just in case you might come back, just in case I could see you one more time. She blinked slowly, then spoke. Isn't it strange that you went that far? Yeah, it was kind of strange, I said with a smile. But I just did, because that's what I wanted. That day, we shared the stories buried deep inside us. Words we had hidden for a long time: fear, hesitation, vulnerability. The reason she pushed me away wasn't because she disliked me, it was because she was struggling to carry herself. And I wanted to understand that. As the sun set and light slowly turned on in the park, we sat side by side on the bench, silently watching them glow. It was a night where we didn't need to say everything, a distance where each other's warmth was enough. And that day, for the first time, I reached out my hand, carefully but naturally. She looked at it for a moment, then gently took it, and with a shared glance that said, let's leave everything else behind and stay in this moment, we walked on, hand in hand. Winter break was long, long but short, and every moment stayed with me for a long time. After we held hands that day, our relationship quietly continued through the last stretch of winter. There was no dramatic confession or special event, but just the flutter when our eyes met, and the warmth when we sat next to each other. That was enough. But that day, she left the library with a slightly heavier expression than usual. Minjae, do you have time today? She asked first. Of course I said yes. Even if I didn't, I would have made time. We walked away from the busy streets into a quiet alley, and entered a small cafe. She sat by the window, hands clasped tightly. There was silence for a long time. Then finally she spoke. Minjae, what do you think will happen after break-ins? It was a sudden question, but also an obvious one. I thought for a bit, then said, well, we can keep seeing each other, right? Call, message, meet on weekends. She slowly shook her head. I don't know if I can do that. Her words were colder than the winter air. I wanted to ask why, but deep down, I already knew. The shadows of sadness she carried, the time she spent fighting herself, and her fear that she couldn't hold on while being with me. I really like being with you, she said, her hands trembling. But it's scary to feel better. Because if I like you more, it'll hurt more later. I couldn't say anything. Nothing was wrong. We didn't fight. We just wanted to know each other better. She looked out the window and said softly, Minjae, you've been so good to me. This winter. Thank you for being by my side. That really helped me hold on. I swallowed hard. Then, what if we take it slow? No pressure. Just like now. But what if someday I disappear again, without a word? You'd wait for me again, wouldn't you? I don't want that. Her voice trembled and tears welled in her eyes. And in that tremble, I already knew her decision. She took a deep breath. This might be selfish, but can I ask you one last thing? I nodded slightly. What is it? She looked into my eyes for a very long time. I just hope you won't be hurt because of me. That sentence cut through me like a blade. I forced a smile and said, I'll be fine, really. But we both knew. I wouldn't be fine. After this moment, we would never sit in this cafe together again. As we left, she gave her final words. Minjae, thank you. Truly. And then she turned and walked away. I stood frozen in place. The last wind of winter blew. Her hair and coat fluttered one last time. And as she turned the corner, she disappeared. Is this what first love is? Is this how it ends? Silently, gently, but so clearly that it stays with you forever. I stood there for a while and finally whispered to myself, goodbye, and be happy. My words disappeared into the wind, and so did a part of my heart. My first love didn't come true, but sometimes the love that doesn't come true stays with you longer. To me, she was that kind of person.